How's it going, everybody? So in this video I'm just going to be going over my top 6 basic principles for a healthy diet for pretty much anyone and everyone, no matter what kind of special snowflake you think you are. Regardless of individual differences, all of these principles are still going to produce the maximum amount of health for damn near everyone. So first of all, let me define what I mean by health. So when I'm talking about principles that increase health, I'm specifically talking about principles that are going to increase your blood markers that are predictors of health outcomes, okay? And also make you feel better in your brain and in your body, help you perform during exercise, and probably reverse most chronic diseases as well. This is based on empirical evidence through vigorous nutrition trials. I have 4 studies that actually talk about some of this on my Instagram, and they're in my highlights if you want to go check them out. Keto Conqueror with a K on Instagram. So without further ado, all of these have to do with increasing HDL, because if you have an HDL level of 60 or above, you're at extremely low risk of heart disease and dying of all causes. Fun fact, most people that live over 100, the one main thing they all have in common is a blood level of HDL 60 or above. So that's definitely something to aim for, and all of these principles will help to increase your HDL to 60 or above. The other thing is low triglycerides, low fasting blood glucose, and low hemoglobin A1C. All of these principles are going to lower your triglycerides, or lower your fasting blood glucose, and do this. And then obviously a greater lean mass to fat ratio. So if you have more muscle mass and a healthy body fat percentage, that's going to help to prevent falling when you're older, and it's also going to increase your insulin sensitivity. And if you do fall when you get older, you're less likely to get injured. You're more likely to be able to be self-sufficient and do your normal duties as you get older with more muscle mass. And it's just going to increase the overall strength of your joints and your body in general. And so anyway, let's get to that. So principle number 1, cut out all bad carbohydrates. So that's obviously flour of all kinds, like refined carbohydrates in general. Anything that's high glycemic load, okay? And glycemic load is very different from glycemic index. Go ahead and look it up yourself. There's even a diet book called the Glycemic Load Diet. I haven't read that one yet, but I hear it's really good. It's really good. Alternatively, you could even go for a low carb diet, or you can even go for a ketogenic diet like I follow, and that will be even more effective at lowering the glycemic load of your entire diet. Removing all refined carbohydrates, all flour, all sugar, even things like date sugar and what are the other ones? Like maple syrup, honey, things like that. And even the higher glycemic load fruits like bananas, okay, and raisins, stuff like that. That's going to have a dramatic impact on your triglycerides, on your energy levels throughout the day. Going to have a dramatic impact on your body composition. Conversely to what a lot of people believe, low glycemic load carbohydrates, diets that are based on low carbohydrates in general, actually tend to produce greater fat loss and greater muscle retention, even on unlimited calories compared to restricted calories diets. And there's many studies that have shown this. Again, go on my Instagram page for some of the studies that show this. Or if I'm not a lazy bum, I'll post them down in the description. But knowing me, I'll probably forget to do that unless someone bugs the crap out of me. So principle number 2, cut out all bad fats. So bad fats are pretty much hydrogenated oils, artificial trans fats of all kinds, mono and diglycerides. When you find that on the ingredients list, that's typically what they have replaced hydrogenated oils with, and it seems to have similar effects, but not necessarily. Now, natural trans fats like CLA, conjugated linolenic acid, that's found in animal products, is fine. It actually has a lot of there's a lot of evidence that shows lower risk of heart disease and even potentially lower risk of cancer, certain cancers, with a greater intake of CLA, particularly coming from whole foods. Supplements don't seem to have that same effect. So not all trans fats are bad, but hydrogenated oils, polyunsaturated omega-6 tends to increase your need for animal source EPA and DHA, because polyunsaturated omega-6 fats, they hinder the conversion of ALA into active omega-3. So avoid bad fats at all costs. The combination of refined carbohydrates and these processed fats, I strongly believe, are the main cause of most chronic illnesses in our society over the last 150 years. In particular, diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer, I believe, are mostly, these are what contributes to them greatly. Just by cutting out bad carbs and bad fats, you're going to improve your HDL, and you're going to improve your triglycerides and improve your fasting blood glucose to a significant degree. And if you combine this with caloric restriction, which is something that I personally do not advocate, simply because I honestly don't believe it's necessary, and I do believe there are better ways. And I have studies to prove it, dozens of studies. But if you do calorically restrict and you combine it with removing bad fats and bad carbs, there's a lot of people that have reversed diabetes this way, without restricting carbs in general and just removing the bad carbs. There's a lot of people who have lost weight dramatically, improving their chronic fatigue syndrome and things of that nature. Things like the Esselstyn program typically removes refined grains, and advocates burning more calories through exercise. So these are proven programs to reverse heart disease. And while I don't agree with plant-based diets entirely, just removing the refined carbohydrates and making some small tweaks to your types of fats you eat can dramatically improve your health and make it a great diet to follow for many people, or at least tolerable. Things like adding algae oil, for example. Anyway, so principle 3. If you are eating carbohydrates and you're not following a ketogenic diet like I am, choose only low glycemic load carbohydrates. So essentially, exchanging these high glycemic load carbs, which are the bad carbs, for low glycemic load carbs, not index, but load. This is going to have probably the most significant impact on your health. So, even no matter what diet you're following, if you're following a Mediterranean-style diet, a vegan diet, a paleo diet, or just a generic, if it fits your macros diet, the types of carbs you eat matter. Even if you're restricting calories, you can still have high triglycerides and high fasting blood glucose while restricting calories if those calories are coming from high glycemic load foods, especially if you're cutting fat. Because when you cut fat, you are most likely speeding up the digestion quite a bit, because you're not eating the fats aren't helping to slow down digestion, which increases the rate of absorption of glucose in the bloodstream, which increases the impact that the glycemic load of that food has. And so I'm just saying, keeping the carbs to low glycemic load carbs is very important. no matter what. And, you know, the closer you move to paleo, the closer you move to keto, the lower the glycemic load is going to be. But fruits and whole grains and things like that have a much higher glycemic load than things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, or even berries. You know, berries and certain other fruits have a very low glycemic load. And you can even stay in ketosis, for example, which is the greatest test of how much your blood glucose will rise, and how much of an impact the carbohydrate will have on your body. And I'm not anti-carb, just so people know, but I am definitely very pro keto and very pro low glycemic. So principle number 4, monounsaturated fat, omega-3, DHA, EPA, and medium chain triglycerides, CLA. Eating more healthy fats, okay? So just removing the bad fats and the bad carbs is not really, it's not going to give you the best health. You have to replace those things with healthier things. So, principle 3, low glycemic, low carbs are going to provide you with magnesium, potassium, and a lot of folate, vitamin B1. If you're eating like legumes, for example, peas, green peas and lentils, very high in magnesium, very high in folate and B1, essential nutrients. I don't eat them because I can't tolerate them, but if you're, so like the fats that you're eating, monounsaturated fat is going to greatly increase your HDL. Getting more animal source DHA and EPA omega-3s, they're going to dramatically increase your HDL level. And medium chain triglycerides, coconut oil, even they're found in butter. CLA is also found in grass-fed butter. People don't know that. Butter's not an extreme source of medium chain triglycerides, but it is a source, a decent source. Obviously, coconut oil is going to have more MCTs, but butter also contains CLA if it's grass-fed. And these things are going to raise your HDL levels. CLA will raise your HDL levels. MCTs they have a lot of benefits on the brain. They have a lot of benefits on your mood, on your sleep. And for people who have gallbladder issues, MCTs tend to be easier to digest because they skip multiple processes that most fatty acids have to go through in order to be digested. I like MCTs because they increase blood ketones, and when my ketones are higher, I have better motivation, better brain functioning, better mood, better mental clarity, better energy, and so I definitely consider them a healthy fat. I see saturated fat so there's different types of saturated fats. There's all different types of monounsaturated, and all of these fats, there's multiple types, multiple chain lengths, etc. But I find saturated fat overall to be neutral, and it could even be beneficial, I feel, simply because of its impact on HDL. There really is no significant evidence that LDL, high LDL, is a risk factor for heart disease, unless you're a vegan zealot who believes in some really weird science. And population studies are not what I'm talking about. Those are trash. Meta-analysis, not really the best thing to go by, especially considering there's dozens of meta-analysis that say saturated fat and LDL have no causal link between heart disease. But more specifically, there's studies on statin drugs, or there's a study, there is a direct linear correlation between LDL and heart disease, and the people with the lowest LDL, there's only 2 people in the sample size, and they're trying to say if you keep your LDL levels under 70 nanograms per deciliter, you have 0 chance of heart disease because of the 2 people in the sample size. 2 people compared to 500 people in the highest LDL group. All I'm saying is there there's no good evidence. I have a whole video breaking that down. Anyway, yeah, if you get your fats on check, higher monounsaturated from olive oil, from pork, from eggs even, their highest concentration of fats are from monounsaturated. Eggs also have omega-3, DHA, and EPA, if you get the flax-fed eggs specifically, or possibly the pastured eggs. So eggs are probably the best way to increase your HDL because they have both the monounsaturated fat and the DHA and EPA. So I highly recommend that. Let's see. And obviously fish is going to be good. Olive oil is good. It's one of the reasons why the Mediterranean diets produce such great results. Another interesting thing is the people of Crete, the blue zone from Greece. They eat lots of olive oil, lots of fish. They're on an island. The people of Okinawa, traditionally they've cooked everything in pork fat, which is high in monounsaturated fat, just like the olive oil. And Okinawans eat a lot of omega-3, DHA, and EPA from fish. They live on an island. Gotta be an idiot to think they don't eat a lot of fish. People of Costa Rica, more fish. And I've read a lot of things that say they eat a lot of pigs. And even in the Seventh-day Adventists, the fish eaters have a lower risk of all-cause mortality than the vegans. Probably the DHA and EPA thing. Probably an HDL correlation. So more fish, more pork and olive oil, and monounsaturated fats, and less polyunsaturated omega-6. Okay, low glycemic load carbs. Use an elimination diet to discover food intolerances. So if you have any kind of psoriasis, if you have severe arthritis, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, or an autoimmune condition, or any kind of condition that isn't solved by these other principles, it's probably a good idea to try an elimination diet. For me, I went on the autoimmune paleo diet and I reversed my psoriasis. I found out that it was whole grains. In particular, it was things like wheat, oatmeal, peanuts, and beans and legumes. They tend to cause psoriasis and skin issues and even hives. Because I'm probably allergic to peanuts and wheat. My girlfriend has fibromyalgia pains anytime she eats anything with gluten. Even triple distilled like alcohol, like whiskey, she still gets fibromyalgia episodes. And peanuts also, if she eats too much peanuts, she tends to get fibromyalgia pains. So something like a Whole30, a paleo diet, a primal blueprint diet, these are good elimination protocols. The GAPS diet is more intense and probably not necessary. And then if you still have problems, even on like an autoimmune paleo diet, which is what I used, you might want to try an all meat diet, like a meat cleanse, right? The carnivore diet. Try that for probably about 2 weeks is the maximum. You should notice within the first week if your symptoms go away. And if they do, maybe it's some type of plant food that you're eating. Or maybe for some reason your body's reacting to all these plant foods, in which case you could either stick to a all-meat diet, a carnivore diet, and just accept that that's what you got to do to keep your symptoms away. Or maybe you can go down the rabbit hole I went through for years trying to figure out, how can I digest these plant foods without getting these reactions and things? Honestly, I personally don't believe that plant foods are necessary to live. There's plenty of examples of people who lived decades. There's one guy, Alexander the Bear Stanley, who lived well into his late 70s, and he died of a fucking car accident, and of all things. And he was eating a carnivore diet for 50 years leading up to that. There's obviously the Inuit. There's Stefansson, the Arctic explorer. There's the World Carnivore Tribe on Facebook, where there's thousands of people every day who report reversing all their chronic diseases on this all-meat diet. I personally follow a ketogenic diet. I eat mostly animal foods though, but I don't think that it's like I don't think plant foods are bad for you. I just think if you're having autoimmune problems that are solved by removing plant foods, there really is no good reason to keep plant foods in your diet. A lot of people feel obligated to eat salads and stuff, like I did for so long, and people might actually feel way better removing those foods. I noticed the healthier I tried to eat for a long time, the worse I felt. And a lot of that had to do with all the fiber I was eating and all the foods I was intolerant to. Anyway, elimination diet, step 5, for people who have these harder conditions might be a good idea, but it's not necessary for everyone. If you just stick to the first 4 principles, you're going to have better blood markers. You're going to put diabetes into remission. You're probably going to lower your coronary artery calcium scan, which is the golden standard in heart disease prevention or heart disease diagnostic. You're going to feel better. You're going to lose weight and probably not even need to calorically restrict. Lots and lots of health benefits come from those first 4. You don't need to follow a vegan diet. You don't need to follow a keto diet. You don't need to follow any dogma or any tribe. But I do feel like keto helps. I think paleo helps. I think low-carb diets help. But as long as you're following the first 4 basic principles, everything else is secondary. If you're the type of people who enjoys fruits and vegetables and low glycemic, low carbs, you should be able to hit all of your 100% of your recommended daily allowance of nutrients pretty easily. Track that with Chronometer, which is a phone app I use. And then so the 6th principle is a bonus principle, is supplement with tonic herbs. So there is a lot of scientific literature behind these, but it's more so just the benefits and effects that they have on everyone who uses them. Things like holy basil, gynostemma, even something like mucuna, which I don't consider a tonic herb anymore. These things can improve your mood, they can improve your sleep. Do your own research on these things. I have plenty of videos about different herbs. They're kind of just like the icing on the cake. And for people who want like a multivitamin or something, I highly recommend people don't get multivitamins and don't use isolated nutrients unless you understand how they work in the body and how to balance these out, because too much of one nutrient can cause all sorts of problems. And synthetic nutrients, a lot of times, are not metabolized the same way as whole food nutrients. So for those people who want like an insurance policy, which I don't think you need at all, you could use a like a green drink or something like that, one that's high in some of the nutrients. The nutrients are harder to get, like magnesium, folate, vitamin B1, vitamin C, things like that. But it's not necessary. So with that being said, post your questions and comments down below. Let me know what y'all think, and I will talk to y'all in the next video.